Alrighty, new story. Well, second book of an old story. This is the second book of The Care and Feeding of Humans, called All About Lynaehids. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. You all asked for the second book. Here it is. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Dark Machine, Estrella the Dreamer, Messick, Fudic Yol, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. And off we go. All About the Lynaehids, Part 1, Trade and Translation. Lynaehids are as successful on trade routes that one might expect. While their home world does not offer a great amount of resources, the Lynaehids themselves are excellent traders. Perhaps they are excellent traders because their home world does not offer a great amount of trade desirable resources. One reason that Lynaehids make such excellent traders is that they have an ear for languages. They can learn a language well enough to conduct trade in less than a year. This leaves them less reliant on translation implants and software translation issues. There have been some claims that the newest species in the aggregate can learn a language faster than that, but the many rumors about humans will be dispelled in our forthcoming publication about humans. The Care and Feeding of Humans. Written by Dybiuk Review of Ontological Species Studies, All About Lynaehids, Trade and Translation. Published by Glass and Steel, All About Lynaehids, Translation Engine 3.1415. Where's my arm? Has anyone seen my arm? Zoe asked from behind her bed. She appeared to be looking under the bed for a missing arm. You, lost your arm, Zoe. That seems kind of, careless, Alan said with a smile. Everyone was hanging out in Zoe's room. Zoe was still packing. All would have been except, where's my flipping arm? Zoe demanded, coming up from behind the bed. Zoe looked at Bubsy, who was chewing on something, but it didn't look like a whole arm. Bubsy, Zoe said in a warning tone, and Bubsy froze, looking at Zoe with big eyes. Bubsy, give me my arm. Bubsy dropped what she'd been chewing and covered it with her paws. Zoe stood up and walked over to the kitten. When they'd first adopted Bubsy a little over 2 months ago, she'd been the size of an earth kitten. Now she was the size of a corgi. You still pick her up and hold her, but carrying her for long distances wasn't the best choice. Bubsy, Zoe said. Her tone was mild, but still held warning. Give me my arm. Bubsy put her head down and looked away. Okay, Bubsy. You asked for it. Zoe picked the kitten up and cuddled her into her left arm, since the right arm was missing below the elbow. Once Bubsy was up in the air, Zoe's prosthetic arm was clearly visible. Bubsy had been lying on top of it and chewing on the fingers. Tariff picked up Zoe's arm. Here it is, Zoe. I can't believe you lost it in this little room, he teased her, and Zoe let Bubsy down. Robbed of her favorite toy, Bubsy headed over to Nerif for consolation pats and scritches. Nerif was happy to oblige. Tariff examined Zoe's arm and said, It looks fine, except for the cat hair. Zoe snatched the arm from Tariff and headed for the refreshing room. The sound of running water indicated that Zoe was trying to wash the cat hair off the arm. Zoe came back out in a few minutes, using her left arm to twist the right arm into place. Zoe finished tossing new things into a luggage droid and gave it a pat to let it know to close up. She held up Bubsy's leash and Bubsy abandoned Nerif for a fun of a walk. Well, I know where I stand, Nerif said, and she corrected herself. Sit. She stood up, as did the rest of the team. Nate, Quirf, Alan, and Tariff headed out the door. Zoe snapped Bubsy's leash onto her harness and checked to make sure that the harness fit well. You just checked her harness yesterday, Nerif pointed out. She's growing pretty fast, and I worry that I won't fit from day to day, Zoe said. She bent over and pet Bubsy behind the ears. The team had spent a month after Nerif's release from ISO quarantine working with Bubsy, getting her to agree to a harness and a leash, getting her used to crowds of people and transports and walkways and all of the hundreds and hundreds of things that they were designed to freak a kitten out. Bubsy did very well, though it did take a number of treats and field trips to get her to get a relaxed kitten that she was now. If Bubsy could deal with that today, Nerif thought, it'll all be worth it. Today, they were boarding the ship for the next contract. While the contract had specified the human Lynae make up their team, they'd only described Fubsy as a feline. As they boarded the ship, a figure in a giant hat and a feather approached them. The feather was a giant and impressive plume, and almost hid the hat under the wafting flutters. "Greetings, fair expedition team. I am your captain, your Ch.1, your conveyor to destiny, and I bid you welcome." He took off his hat and waved it in a large, elegant sweep, while he bowed deeply to the team. "You may call me Captain John Rackham." Fubsy, who had been well behaved until this moment, could not resist the large feather moving in front of her and pounced on the Captain Rackham's hat, tearing it from his hand. Captain Rackham was a troll, a species known for their size and strength as much as their good humor, and he looked down at Fubsy mooring his hat with a surprise and a smile. "And who is this fearsome beast? Who has so easily destroyed the dangerous hat with a feather?" he asked. "I'm sorry, Captain. We'll replace the hat. This is Fubsy, our pet feline," Zoe said, while trying to retrieve the hat. Fubsy relinquished the hat, but kept the feather. "It is of no matter," Captain Rackham said, with a wave of his hand. "If I had remembered my Earth biology better, I would have remembered the Catskill birds, and surely would have realized that the hat would have fallen to any feline with dignity." He turned to Fubsy, still trying to catch the feather in her mouth, though it was stuck in her paws, so every time she moved, the feather quivered just out of reach of her mouth. "To you, dear lady." He then looked up at Zoe. "Fubsy is a lady, is she not?" "Sometimes," Zoe agreed. "To you, dear lady," Captain Rackham said again. "I give thanks for saving me from the predation of said bird." Then he bowed again to Fubsy. This time, Narif noticed he did not wave the hat about, but held it across his chest and bowed. "As for your accommodations," he said to Narif as her role as liaison, "we have a suite of quarters normally reserved for any other trolls that may be traveling with us. I believe they will fit your requirements of a shared living space with differential sleeping quarters." "Thank you, Captain Rackham," Narif said. "We are a team, and like to keep our bonds strong." But Nate snores. "Hey," Nate said, and then added, "only when I'm asleep." "I also have for you your navigational bracelets." Narif didn't see where he pulled the bracelets from. One second his hands were empty, and the next he had 7 bracelets in his hand. "One for each of you," he handed them out, "and one for Fubsy." He looked at Fubsy and looked at the bracelet and said, "Maybe you can fix it to a harness." Captain Rackham turned back to the team. "We will have our initial meeting about the expedition in 7 bells, ship time, approximately 2 hours after we depart this fair planet. All available data will be handed out at the time. You will then have time to read and discuss the material. At 8 bells tomorrow morning, we will have a second meeting for any questions. I must now attend to my fine ship. I trust that you can find your own way to your quarters." This time, his bow involved clicking his heels together and tipping slightly forward from the waist. As Narif watched him walk away, she leaned close to Quirf's ear. "Who exactly picked this expedition?" Quirf smiled and shrugged. "Nate and Zoe both did, mostly because he needed a team of 6, and that's what we had." Alan had turned on his navigation. The blue light was patiently waiting to take them to their quarters. The team started down the hall. Fubsy had finally seized the feather in her mouth and was now prancing proudly as she carried it along with her, even when it dragged on the floor or brushed the wall. Narif tapped her bracelet. "Set alarm to guide us to meeting at 7 bells tonight," the bracelet said. "Alarm set 5 minutes to 7 bells. Narif turned to Zoe. "So, shall we bring Fubsy to the meeting tonight?" Zoe pointed at the now very bedraggled feather in Fubsy's mouth. "I don't think she should meet anyone else that might be dressed like our captain was. Let's warn them about her plume fetish before we actually meet." End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.